everybody, welcome back to the channel. In today's video I'm going to be talking to you about everything that's been going on at West Ham in the past week or so. Now that I know I'm a bit behind with the times, I was on holiday, I do apologise, it's all my fault. Because yeah, basically I planned a holiday, I was going to go to F1, watch the Barcelona Grand Prix, I did that. But I picked a really bad week for it because basically everything at West Ham changed. Obviously, the last video I made that was big on the channel, a big video, was the David Sullivan news when he stepped down. Then I believe it was the same night or a couple days later maybe, was the Panorama documentary that came out. And then obviously other things have happened. Kretinsky has now got more shares, is now the majority shareholder at West Ham. So a lot of things have kicked off. But before we get into all that, if you guys do me a little favour, just make sure you hit the like button and subscribe button. I used to have a little ticker down here that used to say the sub goal, which was 200 subscribers. We are literally one subscriber away from that. So if you guys do me that favour, hit the subscribe button. It genuinely means so much to me. Thank you guys also very much. And yeah, as you can probably tell, a bit different. We've got some new equipment. I've got a DJI camera. So hopefully the audio sounds good. Hopefully the visuals are a lot better. And hopefully I look okay in HD and not too... So yeah, I want to kind of discuss today everything that's going on, because there's been lots of news, mainly that Daniel Kretinsky obviously is now our main majority shareholder. And he has a lot of changes planned, supposedly, talking to a lot of newspapers and outlets saying how he wants to basically get the goodwill back with the fans. And what I will say is this, and this is not a negative thing towards Kretinsky, because I need to give him a chance. I'm not saying I don't trust Daniel Kretinsky. That would be preposterous. But what I will say is I think it is the easiest job in the world to be an owner and try to gain favour with West Ham fans by just doing the bare minimum. I'm not saying that's what Kretinsky is doing, but I'm saying that genuinely I think any of us as a fan base to start with would see so much goodwill towards owner if you just started doing the right things, because we've been run so poorly. And yet it seems so far that he wants to, and not only do the bare minimum, but also go above and beyond and really make West Ham not only his club, but a club the fans can be happy about again, a club the fans can be really supportive of. And overall create an environment where the fans don't feel like they're at the throats of the ownership anymore, which is really important. I think really something that should have happened ages ago. It's ridiculous that in football, in the modern era, in a Premier League team, in a club that has a stadium that is over 60,000, that the ownership don't understand the importance. I think overall in the Sullivan era, we lost that. We lost the connection. We had an owner who seemed to have no ambition, who seemed to just realistically not listen to the fans, get annoyed at the fans whenever they would disagree with him, and then still go through with the stuff that the fans said this is a bad thing. And Sullivan did that anyway. And that's obviously not me talking about the allegation side of things. This is strictly a football conversation. And I think overall, we lost a bit of our soul. We want to talk about the West Ham way, and I don't really believe that as a thing on the pitch. I don't really believe the West Ham way is a feasible thing that you can play on a football pitch. I'm sorry if you disagree with me, it's just my opinion. But what I will say is that I genuinely think we lost our way as a club. I think we had no identity. I think as fans we tried to rally together and get behind something and get behind a movement that we believed would get us back to where we belong. But I don't think the ownership were behind that. And we saw with Karen Brady and David Sullivan just a lack of care and a lack of empathy as well, I think, for the club and the fans and everyone involved, really. And look, no matter what you think of Sullivan and or Brady, I think in terms of a Football League perspective, they didn't do the right things and they let the club down. So when you hear Kretinsky now, let's talk about the things first that I want to talk about, which is the stadium, because I think this is the biggest thing ever. Yes, we can talk about players all we like. I think players are going to be a major factor for West Ham going forward. But I think the stadium's a massive thing. So basically he's saying he wants to make some change to the stadium. I've heard mumblings and rumours and all of this about certain things. So apparently he wants to reduce the gap between the fans and the ground and the pitch. Easiest win ever, I think. If you're a West Ham owner, I think fans have been clamouring for this for ages. It would really help the atmosphere, because again, it's not that you can't get a good atmosphere at the London Stadium. That is genuinely false. We've seen European nights, we've seen really good games there at London Stadium, especially this season, weirdly, when we were up against it. In the darkest times, the West Ham fans made that bowl have a soul, which is crazy considering it is literally known as the Soulless Bowl. So you have to look at it, I think, that way. And so there is foundations to build upon, but it is still an athletics bowl. So I think Kretinsky wants to kind of take that away, the athletic side of it, and really push to making it a football ground, because there is a good bit of stadia, but it needs work. The issue is when we agreed the deal for London Stadium, the guys behind it, Sullivan, Brady, all of them, just you know, although saying it's going to be a world-class stadium for world-class team and whatever, it could have been, but you didn't put the effort in. You didn't try to make the stadium world-class for football. Because let's be honest, it is a good stadium in terms of how stadiums are, not for football specifically, but in terms of an actual bit of stadium, the foundations are there. So that to me was the first thing, was how can Kretinsky turn this stadium into something where the West Ham fans can be proud to call home? And I think he's doing it. I genuinely think he has the right idea. Because to get rid of the gap is the first thing, right? Because I think that is the major issue. And yes, you can do the little small things first, but I think to swing for the fences and get the thing that is probably the biggest problem with the stadium out of the way is really good, because even then, if you struggle to, you know, commit to the future promises, you've made that promise and you've made that work. And I know that's me again, very pessimistic view, but I'm just talking about the tap-ins that a new owner can make. And that for me is one. If you can make the stadium to feel a little bit more like home, happy days. And I think Kretinsky wants to. I think Kretinsky sees the value in us as a fan base. I think he sees the power of West Ham as a brand, and also how good the brand is. But the brand is only as strong as the people that buy the clothes or go to the game and the fans. So if the brand just gets bad reviews, it's not going to sell well. It's not going to appear well. So I think Kretinsky realises the value that we have as fans and keeping us happy to ensure that overall he has a good experience as the majority shareholder at West Ham. I don't think that's that crazy of a take. I could be wrong. I could be being absolutely silly and have no idea what I'm talking about. I think that is the main thing. It's making West Ham healthy again in the public eye. I know we go, oh, we're a massive club, whatever. But we are a big club in the sense of we should be able to be in the Premier League. We should be a really good Premier League club. The signings we've made are decent, but it's the infrastructure, it's the longevity, it's the lack of planning. And what we need now is a plan. And overall, I think this is where we get one. Because Steve Nixon, formerly of Newcastle United, is set to become West Ham's Director of Football, Technical Director, whatever you want to call it. And overall, I think this is a good move. Proven Premier League, Director of Football, credited with signing some really good players. I believe Botman's one of them. I believe Bruno Guimaraes is another one. Joel Linton, which I know some people are a bit Marmite on Joel Linton. I'm a fan personally. I think Joel Linton has been a solid player for Newcastle. And as the players go, do you know what? He didn't work out to start with, but I think that's fine. I think sometimes in football, we judge players way too quickly. I think the first one is, for me, is a player like Ekitike or Wirtz. I can even talk about Liverpool players in general. These young players that come over, leave their country. Like, it's not going to be easy. You can't just crack on with the football. I know when you're getting paid that amount of money, right, that you're expected to have some level of quality. But to hit your peak immediately, sorry, I don't subscribe to that theory. I don't believe that is healthy. I don't believe it's possible. I genuinely believe that it's the wrong way of thinking. I think it's not the right way to look at a player, especially a young player. And I know sometimes we get this comments of, oh, you know, we want a director of football that can unearth gems, and I agree that is important, you know, cheap players that can move forward, and I think he is that. I think he is really good at doing that. I think overall it seems he's well liked. The Newcastle fans aren't happy he's going. Some people blaming Eddie Howe. I don't really know what's going on there. Apparently there was some mixed messaging with Newcastle and the higher ups and what was going on there and who was actually in charge of the transfers and how much power, you know, Nixon had. And overall I think it's important to look at Nixon as a way forward and look at him as a positive step. Now, I don't know how much Nuno has had involved in this. Obviously, the rumour was Nuno would be heavily involved in the next director of football. So it's going to be interesting to see, because overall I don't think Nuno realistically should be too involved in that. I understand getting a director of football that wants to work with Nuno. I get that, right? Because the whole Edu situation at Nottingham Forest. I think Nuno is right in his mind to go, well, if you're going to get a director of football in, he has to work with my style, at least a little bit. He has to not be trying to look at me out the door, because that obviously was very clear what happened at Nottingham Forest. And you know, Nuno lost all of his kind of connection with Mr. Marinakis. The amount of conversations they were having and the quality of the conversation dipped. So I can understand entirely from Nuno's perspective to have some involvement. But I think the big thing here for us is that Daniel Kretinsky was one of the only members of the board who wanted to keep Nuno, and Daniel Kretinsky is now the biggest influential face and figure in that boardroom. I think overall you have to look at it that way. I think overall you have to see this as a united step forward, which is weird because we've been West Ham United, but we don't feel like we've been united for a while. So that looks really positive. And overall, again, I don't know too much about him, but all I know is if he's a good, nice guy, and can work with Nuno, can bring us forward, then that's what we want. I understand the whole point of a director of football is to look beyond the current manager and build an identity for the club. So when that manager leaves, you can just get another manager in that's very similar. And Nuno's style might not be that. But realistically, right now, what we need is a director of football who can work with Nuno and go, okay, this is how you want to play. These are the players I'll give. These are the players I'll get you. Because also, Nuno's style isn't horrible, and Nuno likes to play young players. Let's not take the mick. He played Mahamadou Kante. He played Ezra Mayers. He did give a lot of time to these young footballers. It wasn't just these boring old players he was playing that really bogged down his stuff. He would give minutes to younger guys. And I think overall Nuno he's the first manager in a long while, where I genuinely believe he sees the value in the academy. I do believe that. And I think we're going to see that more in the Championship this summer as well. I think this is really good. Moving on to players though, Daniel Kretinsky has also said that we don't need to sell anymore this summer. He's going to put the money in to ensure that we don't need to sell, or at least not have as much pressure to sell, which I think is good. Again, another easy win for the owners to put some money into the club, because I feel like we've not had that. We've had owners that have just taken out loans and loans and loans and loans. So to actually have an owner that goes, there is some money, this will help you out. Great. It's really simple, it's really short. Look, do I expect some players to leave? Mateus Fernandes, gone. Somerville, gone. Wan-Bissaka, gone. Diouf, I don't know, there's not been much loving for Diouf recently. I think Diouf would be really good in the Championship. I think he'd benefit from it. I think Todibo, gone. Areola, gone. So there's going to be a lot of players leaving. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying we're going to keep the squad. I wouldn't want to either. I don't think that'd be good. Going into the conversations of transfers and being like, well, we're the weak little cub that, we're going to just get trampled on again and again and again because we need money. So you have to sell. We're not like that now, and we have a bit more about us, and I like that as a club. I like that. I like that ability. I like the fact that we have that. I think that's really important for us as a club and as a unit. So overall, I'm going to say big thumbs up from me. Happy days. And finally, Amanda Staveley has apparently been spotted at West Ham. Now, I've seen the photo. I'm sure we all have at this point. Who knows? Look, again, it's just a rumour at this point, but it is a rumour that's crept up again. Obviously, the rumours of Amanda Staveley last time was around a couple of months ago, but that was when David Sullivan was here, and it was interesting, and it was sort of like, oh, is she going to take out Sullivan? And now she doesn't really have to, but Sullivan's shares could be up for grabs, and she's also very popular. I don't know too much about her. All I know is that Newcastle fans really like her. She did really well by the club. She did great things, and I'm really have to say, I'm happy with this. Obviously, Sullivan's still here at the club in the capacity of owning shares, and I don't know how that's going to go. I don't really know what David Sullivan's sort of role will be here moving forward. But what I do know is we seem to be positioning ourselves to bring in a really positive experience and vibe at the club. Not only are we changing the stadium, we also changed the training ground, which I forgot to mention. We're bringing in people that are well liked and seem to work well. And I hope we can really get, I hate to say it because it sounds cringy, but like a family dynamic at West Ham again would be really positive for me. I think that's really what I'm looking for with this club, because it's been so fractured for so long. And it's been really difficult as a fan to know who's doing what. And I think I'd like it to be not that, which I know is the most basic thing I've ever said. But I really like the club to actually have some trajectory, to have some ability, to have some, I don't know, just some fire under our bellies to go, do you know what, we're in the Championship, we're back in the Premier League, then when we get back to the Premier League, we're going to do well and try and become a European club again. And that's not me saying the Championship's going to be easy, but what I'm saying is that I believe we are building the foundations to make the Championship as easy as possible. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying we're going to cakewalk the league. I would love to win the Championship. Genuinely, I would love it. Do I think we will? Probably not. But I think this is really good for the players. Like when Nuno did his interview and he said, well, I need to give the players some time off. And when we come back, we'll discuss who wants to stay, who wants to leave, and what my plan is, and we'll see what happens. But this is so good for the players, because when they come back, they will see the work that has been going on. We have not dithered like we have for ages. We are now beginning to build something about us, which is mega, because we haven't done that for ages. So overall, I'm feeling really positive about West Ham, but how are you guys feeling? I'm sorry the content's been a little bit hit and miss. I promise you all my holidays and time away is done now, so hopefully content will be more regular than it was before. Make sure you hit that like, comment and subscribe button. I'll see you guys later. Take it easy and bye.